so fired up for this next session where we'll be chatting with the Discord team and really learning about how they're using Webflow to empower teams to be more independent, more agile, all while maintaining brand consistency on the website. So briefly before we get started, my name is Brando, pronouns he, him. I'm an enterprise account executive at Webflow and been working with the Discord team now for around a year, so very excited to shed some light on their amazing story. So without further ado, let's bring out our panelists. If you can give it up for them, we can go ahead and get started here. All right, so we do have quite a few questions, but before we dive in too deep, would love to just do a quick round of intros. So maybe we'll start here with you, Paris, if you can go through name, role, and maybe how Webflow's, how you're using Webflow today.
So hi, I'm Paris, Senior Engineering Manager at Discord on the Core Experiences team, he, him pronouns. I work on all things messaging, mobile, all that kind of stuff. And before all that, I helped start the growth team at Discord, and that's when we pulled in Webflow. Nice. Oh, also, hey, I'm Lee. Go ahead.
All right, thanks, Paris. Hey, everyone, I'm Nick, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Discord, pronouns he and him. I'm also in the Core Experiences org, so the teams that I work with are our messaging teams and our gaming teams. So we've launched features like threads on Discord, text chat and voice channels, and working on fun projects with partners like Xbox and PlayStation to bring closer integration like voice chat and showing game activity within Discord. So yeah, I use Webflow to, in collaboration with all the panelists here, to conceive and also deploy new web pages, for new landing pages, new campaign pages, even new product pages, right? So I'm super excited to talk to the community that Webflow has here today.
Yeah,
all right.
Hey. My name's Sean. I'm a senior product designer, also on the Core Experiences team. I mainly focus on our gaming and hype tools squads, and I also do a lot of the supporting design work for any of the Webflow pages that we put up, and pronouns he, him.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan. I'm a content marketing manager at Discord on the consumer marketing team. And last year, I led our blogs migration off of medium.com and onto Webflow. I use she, her pronouns, and I want to give a shout out to my team, Cody, Tori, and Charlie.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Love it. Well, let's go ahead and dive in here. As I said, we do have quite a few questions, and I think it's always great to start. It's obviously we're using Webflow today for the Discord site, and we'll get into that, but I think it's great to have a baseline of what the team was doing before Webflow. So maybe we start there. Paris, maybe talk us through some of the working processes prior to switching.
Yeah, so what did it look like? We would get around 10 requests per quarter for pages. I jokingly say we didn't do that many of them. We probably completed one page a quarter or something like that. And that was really because we were prioritizing product engineering work, trying to really make the core product. So yeah, and it would kind of look like 1 month end-to-end of convos around, and a lot of collaboration from a lot of team members. It was about 1 week of design and dev work, though. And so I was kind of looking at this and thinking, man, we really need some sort of CMS solution here. Right. And I think that we were thinking the collaboration there would be a lot better in that situation.
Yeah, definitely. Gotcha. And Nick, maybe curious to hear from you on this as well.
Yeah, so I joined Discord shortly after this hackathon that Paris mentioned. So we had just gone out of our exploratory vetting phase of Webflow as a tool and as a solution. And now we were making a commitment to building all new web pages using Webflow. So yeah, was super excited to jump on board. Within my first week of joining the company, met with several wonderful folks at Webflow for some training, checked out some of the resources on Webflow University. And yeah, really got up to speed on how to use Webflow as a platform. I had previously never used the tool, so I felt really comfortable at this point. And within a month and a half of joining Discord as a company, I already had a page up on our website, right? So this was, we had a massive rebranding effort last year, and this was a page that we were driving millions of users to. So yeah, super exciting from a career perspective to do that really quickly, and Webflow made it really easy for me to do that. Shortly after, we wanted to empower so many other folks across the company, right? Other cross-functional partners to actually build pages using Webflow themselves, right? So the way we did that was create like a step-by-step internal doc from like, hey, this is the kind of page that I want, right? And kind of templatizing that so that they can select from several different templates, all the way down to like, this is how I'll deploy it to our website, right? In collaboration with design, with Paris's engineering team, as well as with Megan as well, right? So yeah, it was super exciting to going from never using the tool to making a commitment to building new web pages and empowering other folks at the company to actually build pages on by themselves as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like, I mean, obviously, like going from engineering building like 1 to now like 10 pages a quarter is wild. I know we're also using Webflow for the blog, though, right, Megan? So, from your perspective, talk us through the history of the blog. Where was it before Webflow, and what were some of the challenges that you were facing? Where was it falling short?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, the blog used to be hosted on medium.com, which, if some of you are familiar, it's a blogging platform. It's super convenient. A company of 20 to 40 people, which Discord was at the time, could just hop on, type up a quick blog post, and submit it to the publication. So that's all it was for many, many years. When I joined the company, it was glaringly apparent that a change was needed, there were upgrades needed, and the timing was really perfect in that this Hack Week project had just happened, and a member of the blog team, Cody, had been on that team. So as soon as I joined the company, was like immediately sucked into Webflow and pumped to make that change. So we knew we needed a lot of changes, and that was a big discussion. So around what kind of control we would have over the blog, what it looked like from a design perspective, how we could track metrics, et cetera. And I actually want to let Sean talk a little bit about the design, because that was a really big part of how to rebrand the blog.
Yeah, so you can kind of see it here if we hadn't jumped ahead. But thanks, Nick.
Yeah, of course.
And so a few of the big things that we kind of looked at the time, Discord's brand was evolving pretty dramatically, and we were making a big push to not just grow like our user base, but also kind of solidify what our platform looked like as a whole. And so everything from like bringing in a new blur poll color and making sure that we had more wumpuses everywhere. And that was just like little things like that we can't really do inside the Medium platform, as well as kind of looking at it and like having competition presented on that page. Like you don't really want to have a blog post about how we're growing and then have a suggested blog post for like Twitter there as well. So there was a lot of opportunities there for us to kind of bring the new Discord style together while building in Webflow.
Yeah, so Nick and Paris and team approached the blog squad, and they're like, hey, have you heard of this thing called Webflow? And we're like, we're already on board. We're ready to migrate.
That's amazing.
So we were one of the first teams, I think, to make the switch.
Yeah, and I know that migrating landing pages one at a time is one thing, but migrating a content management system, that's can be a heavy lift, as I'm sure some of us know. It involves a lot of stakeholders. So what did that CMS migration look like? What were some of the unique challenges that you faced as a content team? And
Yeah, I mean, it was a big project. I won't say like it was easy, and it didn't happen in a day. Step one was we sat down with the designer, just like Sean. At the time, his name was Jeff, and we worked with Jeff to basically say like, okay, what needs to come over? What design elements are working? What needs to come over? What organizational elements are working and need to come? But the more exciting and like good conversation was what needs to change. So we got to sit down with our product designer and say, we need this for the blog, we need that, we need this kind of tracking, we need it to look like this, we need things organized in these ways. And we kind of set up that initial list, and that's how we built the first version of the blog, which is really wonderful. And like I said, it was totally a challenge. Like organization was big. To move hundreds of blog articles from Medium and having to format them all and design them and make everything work in Webflow, like it was a lot. It was a lot of content to move, but being able to work like very seamlessly and collaboratively with our designer was a huge part of making it like essentially 2 people handled this entire migration in maybe the course of a week or 2.
Wow, amazing. Awesome. Well, I'm curious. So, like, obviously, this team had a very successful CMS migration. So, maybe Paris, from your perspective, what's the biggest piece of advice for other organizations or companies out there that are either considering a CMS migration or might be like in the thick of one right now?
Yeah. So I think next one. Thank you. So I think there's like a few things. Obviously, you have to start small. I think the Hack Week. I'm going to talk about the Hack Week for a second here. Mm-hmm. So really, what we did there was choose a couple key pages, roll those out, and just started small. We weren't setting out to do a big CMS migration at first.
Right.
We were like, there's an opportunity here or there. Let's like just start small there. The other one was, as part of the Hack Week, was like, we really got a diverse set of supporters around the company. We had our director of marketing actually help us out during the Hack Week, pick out some content, all that stuff. We had copy on board. We had our customer support team on board. Like, we got all these folks together, and you know, everyone was on board, and everyone was like clamoring for it at that point. And then the last piece was like moving forward and deploying these pages. We were like, we need to keep quality high and be responsive whenever anything isn't above board, I guess, you know. And this is important because no code is pretty new for lots of folks. Not everyone fully understands it, but they don't need to. Like, it's really about the end impact there and showing how adaptable it is and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, amazing. And you know, Megan, Sean, I know you were heavily involved in the project as well, so anything to add?
I'll go first, I guess. Yeah. Start sooner rather than later. It's easier to move 100 articles than 500 in terms of content. And progress over perfection, which is like a really core tenet at Discord, and I found that it really applied here, which was do a V1 of the blog that is technically feasible and improve every day from there. New projects can always be added. Your first project doesn't have to be the most perfect, but it's better to get it live. And also to keep in mind the people that you're serving. So kind of the core like value of this blog migration that we did was to not lose anyone, because obviously we have hundreds of articles out there. We wanted to make sure that someone didn't find one of those articles and end up at a 404 page. So that kind of guided the way that we handled all of our migration decisions when it came to redirects and helping get users to the right place. So that's my advice.
Yeah, that's great. And I believe you kind of alluded to this, Paris, that there's a lot of people using Webflow today. How many would you say are using Webflow within Discord?
At this point, it's around 50 to 100 people.
That is absolutely wild.
And there's obviously some challenges with that.
I can imagine, yeah. And so, Sean, I know that on the design side, you really are there to help control quality and consistent brand experience. So as it pertains to kind of what we were just discussing, how are you doing that today?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece was kind of investing heavily early. So just as a lot of companies, and us included, have our kind of full Figma design system, bringing that into Webflow and building it out as symbols, or I guess components now, and being able to make it so that kind of anyone can pull that, whether it's Paris or Megan, even Nick, they're able to kind of simply just drop it in. There's kind of no additional complexity there. And so building that foolproof system was kind of the first building block for us to make sure that whatever we ended up building, whether it was a new feature page or like another blog post, whatever that was still kind of following that same strategy. And I think the second piece of that puzzle was setting really clear expectations for like who is actually going to vet this implementation. Like Paris said, no code is pretty new, and it's not necessarily for everyone in terms of like understanding how it actually works. So being able to ensure that, at least on the design side, whoever is reviewing it is comfortable kind of understanding why it looks the way that it does or why it's behaving this way, and potentially able to like step in and actually tweak that on the fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just to add to that, yeah, I mean, want to drop this line here today. With great power comes great responsibility, right? So, I mean, it just started off with a handful of us using the Webflow instance, but if we really wanted to scale our efforts and like scale the number of pages that get pushed and deployed to discord.com, we have to empower like other people across the company to be able to do it as well. So that internal doc was useful for them to like get on board, learn how to like use the tool, and then kind of like high level understand like this is what I need to do to make sure it's brand consistent. But at the same time, you need someone to like vet and gatekeep before it actually gets deployed for millions of users to see, right? So kind of like what Sean said, we had a handful of Sean, like a designer, like someone on engineering, like Paris, product marketing, content marketing as Megan, kind of just making sure that it was in line with some criteria that we've set internally. And once we've assured that it did, then we would make sure it was on its way to discord.com for everyone to see, right? So yeah, no, it's awesome that we've kind of scaled it to the 50 to 100 people that Paris has mentioned. So now each team at the company can work on a page, right? And not be blocked by engineering resources or being blocked by people that actually know or wear the quote unquote like Webflow like owner's hat. So yeah, super excited to be at the point that we are with Webflow.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think we're also still learning a little bit about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I can say that as someone who updated one page, and then 20 minutes later realized that I deleted the header on the home page. And so like making sure that we do have kind of those additional steps in place where you're not just kind of blindly going through as a solo person and kind of relying on the team a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%. Just like you said, Nick, with great power comes great responsibility. So absolutely. So we really kind of started this conversation understanding where, what the baseline was, what you were using before, which is being able to launch, 1 page a quarter versus 10 now, which is huge. But, with that process prior to Webflow, across marketing, design, and engineering, I'm really trying to understand how the dynamic shifted. And I think that'd be cool for everybody to understand is, internally, as you're all working on these websites, how is that dynamic shifting of ownership and collaboration? I know, Paris from the engineering side, like I think specifically would love to hear from you, like what is the team working on now that, you're not necessarily deploying landing pages?
Yeah. So at this point, it's every org is using it for some purpose. Like we have lots of the product teams are using it, legal, customer support, pretty much everyone. And I wanted to give this example here where our bots and apps ecosystem team recently used Webflow to launch a big thing back in October, which was the announcement of our activities ecosystem. And so they launched, during that time, premium apps, which let creators monetize. They launched our app ecosystem fund, which funds all the, a whole new set of creators. And then these pages that they built out on this discord.com/build page onboarded a lot of those folks. Wow. So it was really great because what did the engineering team do at that time? They worked on the core product behind these features. And so in real time, the product marketing team could collaborate on the copy, collaborate on the design, collaborate on onboarding, while engineering just kind of built the core product, which was an awesome collab to see.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And actually, just one follow-up question there for you, Paris. So, in the past, with other similar scaled launches like this, what was the kind of difference between?
Well, it was. I kind of mentioned we had that one page per quarter, but it was the engineering team needs to go work on the core product. We need to queue up all of the copy and all the design stuff to be ready to really hit that 1 week time window where we're refocusing engineering. And all the while, we're keeping the conversations with 10, 20 people going to synchronize that. So I think really what happened here was we were able to just give more people autonomy to, focus on their part. And it really changed how we operate there.
And really reallocate engineering time to do product work, which
Yeah.
is more impactful. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So kind of secondarily to you both, Megan and Sean, I'm curious, what's the impact been for your groups on the content side, design side, and then also, curious also to understand from, a performance perspective if there's been any changes for you all, on the blog or otherwise.
Should I can go
Oh, yeah.
first.
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
No, you go.
No, please. Okay. So I think on the design side, and hopefully other people can relate to this, one of the big kind of blockers and time wasters is seeing an implementation and something's not quite right. The type size is off, or the hover effect on this button isn't behaving the way that you want it to. And from there, you're then creating an Asana ticket that gets passed along and gets assigned and then gets worked on and comes back for review. And then maybe it's right, maybe it doesn't look exactly the way that I imagined, and then there's additional conversations. And so kind of moving to Webflow has made it so that none of that has to happen. I can just tweak that button and hit publish, hopefully not delete anything, and it's done. So just kind of the time savings, and I think also the complexity savings and not having all those tickets floating around and kind of wasting time has been super impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to kind of build off of that, so we use a Webflow partnered agency. So for example, Sean builds a button in Webflow. I can then go to that agency and just make a ticket and say, hey, I want that button on the blog. And within a day or two's time, they can typically turn that around for me. I already know it's approved. It's within our branding. It's been designed by us. But I don't have to go beg Paris or someone to put this button on the blog for me. It's something that our team now has kind of that ability to go and ask for. So we'll kind of go on expeditions around the website and be like, ooh, can we get that nav bar for the blog? Or can we get that button? That would be great. And then we can just have those things without ever having to to bother the engineers.
That's incredible.
That's wonderful.
Love it. Amazing. And I guess kind of the second question with the landing page performance or even blog performance. I know kind of you actually mentioned this earlier, Megan, that you're able to track more specific analytics with regards to the blog. So how has that been since using from Medium to Webflow, and then maybe on the landing page side as well?
Yeah, definitely the control is there now to add the tools that we want and we need for tracking. So we're really deep in like Google Search Console and analytics, and we have just much better like SEO capabilities now. On Medium, we were just very constrained to what they offered us. So now we really have that control. And of course, having all of our website and all of our pages within Webflow means we can also track things more cohesively. So blog is not kind of on this one island because it's in one platform. But now it's like I can compare how the blog is performing to other portals and see which portals are driving traffic where. There's a lot more just interconnectivity now, which has really been wonderful for our page performance and just the whole experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, we monitor every page on discord.com. So if anyone at the company sees some unprecedented like dip in performance, we'll go ahead and like investigate, analyze what happened. And then really anyone can go and see, can this be fixed in Webflow, right? And that really gives us an opportunity to fix it more immediately. There's like less of that downtime. And then we're not relying on engineering to come in and like save the day, right? Once again, like we want anyone to go in and do that thing, which is fix it, right?
Yeah.
And that also allows engineering to focus on core product in parallel.
Huge. Anything else to add, Sean or Paris, on that?
No, they covered it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, really love to hear all this. I do have one more question from me. But before we actually get to that, we're going to be doing an audience Q&A too. So we do have folks virtually. There's a chat there. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. And I'm going to ask this one more question. But if you do have any questions for the Discord team, feel free to jump up on one of these mics in just a moment, and we can field some of that. But before we do, the last question that I have is really curious to know, if you had a magic wand, what would your number one product wish list item be? And I know that we just announced a ton of stuff, so feel free to double down on any of those.
Yeah, so I was going to say cross-project symbols and first-class localization and some sort of multi-designer support. And now I have no advice for you, so there you go.
Woo! Awesome. Before we end here, shout out to my mom. I forgot to say that at the beginning. But yeah, no, I think mine is pretty simple. Really, my responsibility, my relationship with Webflow is making sure everyone at the company can use it so that I can just focus on my respective projects, right? So really, it's just improving that in-product onboarding experience. Really, as soon as we get someone added to the Webflow instance, someone like my mom, right, even, if she can just jump on and like get really familiar like in such a short time, that's awesome, right? It gets them like up to speed, gets them like building a web page, and gets them like actually delivering almost immediately, right? So it really removes us from needing to like step in and like handhold that whole process. So yeah, basically just a better like solid in-product onboarding experience is all I really need.
Yeah, so I'll be a little bit more selfish here and speak solely about something that would be great for me, which is that I think we start to have a lot of different sources of truth, especially from the design perspective, like building in Figma, and then our source of truth, the actual app itself, and Webflow has its own little source of truth. And so those can often get a little bit disconnected, whether it's like updating a typeface or shifting our border radius on images. And so having a way to kind of connect a single source of truth, in my opinion, Figma, but kind of tie that all together, I think would be super valuable.
Amazing.
Nice. For me, I think multi-page instances and editing would be really huge. I don't know about anyone else, but I frequently open multiple tabs of like different blogs that I need to make little changes to, and then Webflow gets angry and makes me close them all. So that plus accessibility features, of course, are very important. I think a lot of us have to kind of go out and teach ourselves how to write good alt text, for example. I would love some of those features to be a little more built in so that it's a little more fail-proof, that I know my alt text is looking good, that I didn't forget it, et cetera.
Yeah, love it. Love the accessibility call out. Super, super important. And really appreciate the thoughtful thoughts on it. for me personally, I think DevLink is awesome, so I'm really hyped for that. But I know we got a couple of questions virtually. Again, if you do have questions here in the audience at the Midway, feel free to grab a mic and we'll call on you. But one quick question from our virtual attendees. Thanks for submitting those questions, by the way. First one, Discord had a redesign in 2021. How did your team migrate and implement the new branding across the entire website? What are some key learnings looking back?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Paris?
So luckily we switched from, we did the rebrand before we actually switched to Webflow. So nothing too crazy there. I think like key learnings, I'm not totally sure. Like I think it's, the big thing for us was being able to test it. And so for any future rebrandings, it's going to be interesting to devise a system where we're going to test old and new Webflow designs and like A/B test them. So we've been playing around with that in the back of our mind.
Gotcha. Really love that. Yeah. Anybody else thoughts on this one?
No,
Not much else from my end.
no, I cannot. I was not here when we actually conducted the rebrand, so I can't speak too much to it. But I do think that kind of transitioning from like Medium over was like our opportunity to bring that brand really much farther forward instead of just like dropping images with that brand on the site, actually able to kind of incorporate it in. But yeah, I think Paris kind of hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we got one more question virtually, but we have a question here at the Midway. Yeah.
Whoa.
Hello. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank
How
you
are
so
you?
much for this. This was really helpful. I just had a question. You said there were 50 plus employees that are using Webflow, right? You spoke to design systems. I'm curious about just general governance and security of the website, because I do think, if everyone can touch the website, then nobody owns the website. So how do you think about that at Discord?
Yeah, so I think there's obviously different owners of different pieces. I would say between me and Sean, we're probably owning the like design system parts and the deployment parts. And then I would say for Nick and marketing, they're owning the cohesive like marketing message or like the cohesive like narrative on the site. Anything to add on that?
No, yeah, I think you covered it. Really, it's just make sure the right people have access or are on the platform to begin with, and then obviously you can set like a seat type or rather role type within Webflow. So I think that really helps us discern who should have more access versus less access to the platform, right? So I think that really enables us to make sure the right people are making the right changes, the right like variations within the Webflow instance, right? That's what we kind of do. I don't know if Sean had anything else to add.
No,
Actually, one more thing on that. Like Sean said earlier, we're kind of learning as we go. One of the things is I'm really excited about the component stuff and the cross-page components, because once we have that, splitting all the projects up and then only granting certain access to certain people is going to be big.
Absolutely.
In specific, like our terms and conditions are all in Webflow now, and like blocking that off for just legal to access is going to be a big deal.
Huge. Yeah, absolutely. Sean?
Yeah. No, I think Paris had a really good point. Stole my point.
Snuck it in.
No, I think it just it's a lot of trust. And like when I first joined the team and I got added to Webflow, I was kind of terrified that I had access to like everything with no real guardrails. So I think we have grown a bit since then, and we have some more restrictions around it and a little bit more documentation around like who we actually add to this. It's not like every new hire is an editor on the site, but I think kind of the new role permissions are going to be really valuable for us. And we also just have, I think, a pretty, I say this like lovingly, but like we have a great team that like I don't think would ever, hopefully, screw things up that. But
Great power, great responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's, you just have to keep
we
saying
keep coming back to this.
That's our motto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But thank you for the question.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, awesome. Well, I believe that's actually all the time that we have, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. First, can we give it up to our panel from the Discord team for joining us? Awesome. Thank you all. And thanks for the thoughtful question here at the Midway and then also virtually. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up, but we'll be back here in a brief amount of time for another session where we'll hear from Yada and Rand Segal. So break in for lunch now. We'll be back here shortly. Thanks,
Cool.
everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.